Have you ever wondered why older women grow distant from their husbands? It's something people whisper about but rarely say out loud. You hear phrases like "she's just tired" or "they've been married too long." But the truth is deeper and more real than most people realize. As women age, they begin to see their marriages with new eyes. Decades of habits, silence, and imbalance come into focus. And for many, it brings a surprising mix of emotions: grief, anger, disappointment, and yes, even resentment. In this video, we're going to explore 6 powerful reasons why some women begin to resent or even hate their husbands in old age. These aren't about small arguments or personality clashes. They're about emotional weight that's been carried quietly for years. From unspoken exhaustion to emotional neglect, each reason is rooted in lived experience. And if you've ever sensed distance growing between you and your partner, or wondered why your wife seems different now, you're not imagining it. Stay with us until the very end, because the final reason may open your eyes in a way you never expected. This isn't just about relationships, it's about finally being seen, heard, and understood. Reason 1, the weight of emotional labor becomes undeniable. As women get older, something begins to shift. What they used to brush off, they now see with clarity, and one of the clearest things is how much emotional labor they've carried through the years. For decades, many women have been the ones remembering birthdays, scheduling doctor's appointments, managing the kids, calming arguments, and noticing when something fell off. It wasn't just housework, it was the invisible work of holding everything together. At first, it might have felt natural, maybe even expected, but over time, the weight adds up. When the children are grown and life slows down, many women begin to see just how one-sided that emotional investment has been. Think about Carol, who's now 74. For most of her marriage, she managed everything, refilling prescriptions, calling the grandkids, planning holidays, and smoothing over family tensions. Her husband Tom always said, "You're just better at that stuff." But Carol now realizes it wasn't a compliment, it was a dismissal. He never tried. And now she resents that deeply. Emotional work often goes unspoken. There's no paycheck for it, no thank you card. But it shapes the tone of a marriage. When that labor isn't recognized or shared, it slowly wears someone down. By the time retirement comes around, many women don't feel close to their husbands, they feel tired of them. It's not about blame, it's about understanding. When one person in a relationship does all the emotional tending, it leads to imbalance. And in later years, that imbalance becomes harder to ignore. Not because the woman changed, but because she finally had time to notice how long she'd been holding it all. Reason 2, the slow breakdown of real communication. It doesn't happen all at once. In fact, that's what makes it so hard to see. But over time, real conversation between couples can quietly disappear. What's left are routines, surface-level exchanges, and daily logistics as "did you take your pills?" or "what do you want for dinner?" But the deeper parts, the laughter, the dreams, the checking in, those start to fade. For many women, especially in their 70s and beyond, this silence can become deafening. Think of Joyce, 79, married to Frank for over 50 years. They watch the same shows, eat the same meals, sit in the same chairs. But she can't remember the last time he asked how she was really doing. Not her joints, not her blood pressure, her. She doesn't expect poetry, but she misses curiosity. For Frank, nothing seems wrong. In his mind, there's no fighting, no drama. But what he doesn't see is that the silence is slowly replacing the warmth. Joyce feels more like a roommate than a wife. She sometimes talks to the television just to hear her own voice in the room. Women aren't asking for grand gestures. They're asking to be met in the middle, to still be talked to with kindness, curiosity, and care. When that's gone, a wedge forms. Not because of what's said, but because of what isn't. Over time, that wedge can turn into deep emotional distance. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Reason 3, unequal caregiving creates silent resentment. In the later stages of life, caregiving becomes a reality for many couples. Illness, memory loss, surgeries, or chronic conditions can shift the rhythm of daily life. And often it's the woman who steps into the role of caregiver without question, without pause. At first, she may not even realize it. She just keeps doing what needs to be done, measuring pills, helping with mobility, driving to appointments. But over time, she starts to feel the weight, not just of the task, but of the imbalance. Think about Margaret, 82. Her husband Bill had a stroke at 76. Since then, Margaret has been caring for him every day. She loves him, but she's worn thin. What breaks her heart isn't the work, it's the memory of her own surgery years ago. She asked Bill to cook or clean for just a week, and he grumbled the whole time. Now she can't forget that. The resentment doesn't come from caregiving itself, it comes from the history that came before it. The times she was strong for him, but he wasn't strong for her. the way she adjusted, accommodated, and compromised while he stayed the same. In old age, when roles shift and caregiving is needed, those memories come back not as anger, but as quiet, simmering pain. It's not easy to talk about. Many women feel guilty even thinking it. They wonder, does this make me a bad person? The answer is no. It makes you human. Reason 4. A lifetime without appreciation takes its toll. There's something that starts to sting more as the years go by, feeling unappreciated. It doesn't happen overnight. It builds quietly, day by day, year by year. For many women, by the time they reach their 60s or 70s, that emptiness becomes hard to ignore. It's not that they needed applause or constant praise, it's that they needed to feel seen. Over a lifetime, women do a lot that goes unnoticed. They plan the meals, keep the family calendar, remember the birthdays, write the thank you notes, wash the sheets, manage the schedules, and do the behind-the-scenes work that holds everything together. And when that work is never acknowledged, it can slowly feel like it never mattered. Think about Lorraine, age 77. She was married to John for over 50 years. She raised 3 children, worked part-time, made every holiday special, and supported John through every job change and family loss. But John rarely said thank you. Not because he was mean, but because he assumed she would always be there. Now in retirement, Lorraine finds herself angry. Not because of one big event, but because of a lifetime of being quietly overlooked. Appreciation doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be a simple, I see how hard you're working, or I don't say this enough, but thank you. When those words never come, love starts to feel like duty, and duty without gratitude wears a person down. In older age, many women begin reflecting on their lives. They ask themselves what they gave and what they got in return. And when the answer feels lopsided, it creates a kind of sadness that's hard to name. Some call it regret, others call it disappointment. But deep down, it's a longing to have mattered, not just as a wife or mother, but as a person. Unspoken, this feeling can lead to distance, a quiet hardening, a withdrawal of warmth. It's not hate, it's hurt, and it's been growing for years unnoticed. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Reason 5, the quiet loss of independence and identity. As the years pass, many women begin to look back on their lives with sharper eyes. And one of the things they often see is how much of themselves they gave up along the way. Not because they were forced, but because they believed that's what love and family required. They gave up dreams, jobs, hobbies, friendships, and sometimes even their own voice. In old age, that loss starts to feel heavier than ever. When you're younger, you're busy. There are kids to raise, bills to pay, dinners to cook, and responsibilities pulling you in every direction. You don't always have time to stop and think, what do I want? But when things slow down, when the kids are gone and the house is quiet, that question comes back. And for some women, the answer is painful. Think about Eleanor. She's 75 now. When she was young, she loved music and dreamed of being a music teacher. But life happened. She married her husband at 22, raised 4 children, and worked part-time to help with the bills. Her husband encouraged her to stay home when the kids were small. Later, he said they didn't have the money for lessons. Now Eleanor sits in a quiet living room, wondering what would have happened if she'd said no once in a while, if she had chosen herself, at least a few times. This isn't about blaming anyone. Her husband didn't stop her with anger or cruelty. He just never asked what she wanted, and she stopped asking too. But the result is the same. She feels like a stranger in her own life, defined more by the role she played than the person she is. And when you feel like your life was swallowed by someone else's needs, it's hard not to feel bitter. Not because you didn't love them, but because somewhere along the way you lost you. In old age, when women finally have time to breathe, they also start reclaiming pieces of themselves. But sometimes the partner beside them doesn't know how to handle that. They've gotten used to things being one way. When a woman starts saying no, setting boundaries, or doing things just for herself, it can cause tension. The truth is, she's not being selfish. She's remembering who she is. And sometimes that memory comes with anger, grief, or even hatred. Not just for what was lost, but for how invisible those losses were to the person closest to her. Reason 6, different approaches to aging and personal growth. Aging changes everyone, but not always in the same way. One of the hardest things for many older women is watching their husbands stop trying, not just physically, but emotionally. While some women use their later years to explore new interests, learn, reflect, or build deeper relationships, their husbands may begin to withdraw. They settle into the recliner, stop caring about what they eat, how they feel, or how they show up in the relationship. At first, it might look like rest, a well-earned break after decades of working. But as time passes, it starts to feel like resignation, like giving up. And for women who are still growing, still curious, still emotionally alive, that passivity can feel like abandonment. Think about Susan. She's 73. She recently joined a book club, started painting again, and began walking every morning. Her husband Richard spends most of the day in his chair watching television. He complains about his knees, ignores the doctor's advice, and shows no interest in anything outside his routine. Susan doesn't hate him for being older. She resents that he stopped trying, that he stopped meeting her halfway, that he looks at her efforts as extra instead of essential. For many women, old age becomes a second chance, a time to reclaim what was put aside. But when their husband doesn't want to grow with them, they feel stuck. And over time, stuck turns into frustration. Frustration turns into distance, and that distance can feel like the quiet death of the relationship. It's not just about health, it's about mindset. Some men resist change at every turn. They brush off emotional conversations, avoid reflection, and dismiss anything that asks them to open up. While that might have been tolerated years ago, it becomes unbearable in later life when time feels more precious and shallow connection feels more painful. In many of these marriages, women don't want to walk away, but they do want something more. They want to be met with effort, presence, and the same curiosity and energy they're still bringing to the table. When that doesn't happen, they don't just feel disappointed, they feel alone in a marriage with someone who still sleeps beside them, but who no longer meets them in spirit. If you've made it this far, take a moment to sit with everything you've just heard. These 6 reasons aren't about bitterness or blame. They're about truth. Quiet, lived truth that many women carry inside for years. This isn't just about why women grow distant. It's about what happens when love isn't nurtured, when appreciation is forgotten, and when effort disappears. It's about the cost of being unseen for too long, but it's also a chance to reflect, reconnect, and repair, if it's still possible. And even if it isn't, it's a chance to validate the feelings that were never named, to say, yes, this happened, and it mattered.